Hi there. A new video game was just announced as in development for the Game of Thrones franchise. There was a big promo trailer and everything, but it's actually still in early production, due middle of next year, 2026. It's titled Game of Thrones War for Westeros. What intrigues me about it, though, is that it's an RTS game, real-time strategy. Not just because I happen to be a big RTS fan in general, but because this means it is officially the first non-mobile game, but console or PC game that the Westeros franchise will have had in over a decade. Now, we knew that Warner Games was going through some major shakeups and intended to revamp and expand their focus on developing Game of Thrones as one of their core franchises. I've made more detailed videos reporting on this. Just to dash it out because it's breaking news, I am telling you, go to my full report, which was more detailed than this, which I just finished up a month ago on all the plans at WB Games and what they're doing in the future and different development teams. That, long story short, WB Games had not one but two megaflops in 2023. They lost over $300 million. Not in raw revenue, but net profit loss of $300 million after Suicide Squad. And there was mismanagement all around, and it was having a significant impact on the wider Warner media empire as a whole, including the movies and TV things. This was a significant chunk of their losses. Well, the higher-ups finally turned their attention to the games division, which we've been begging them to do for over 2 years. By the end of 2024, after all these disasters, the CEO of WB Games announced that he would be retiring after 12 years in that position. So we were asking for change, and well, our leader of the past 12 years is stepping down. Wow. That they're bringing in new leadership and openly said they want to cut down to focus on just 4 core franchises: Harry Potter, DC Comics, Mortal Kombat, and Game of Thrones. But while those other 3 have had big game releases in the past 5 or more years, I mean, Mortal Kombat 1 was pretty big 3 years ago, of those 4, Game of Thrones has been criminally underused, even though it is a major IP franchise. We've barely had any games, even at the height of the original Game of Thrones, which is so weird. Why? I mean, there weren't even they were churning out a lot of bad games. At a certain point, they just stopped trying to make any games. I don't understand. Why was such little attention ever put on this? I mean, you've heard about how badly WB Games handled Suicide Squad. At least, they were trying to make a game for that on that scale, even if it was a mega flop. In many ways, we wished Game of Thrones as a franchise at the time got the level of attention and money and scale of a project that WB gave to Suicide Squad. The biggest show on TV, and they treated it like a footnote. That's just lack of vision. Well, there was a burst of a handful of bad knockoff games after Season 1. And technically, I mean, if you go on wiki lists and look down the list of these are technically games that did exist at one point or another, and you go, I never remembered any of these things. That's the point. They were awful, and even at the time, no one played them. They made no impact, and it was an insult. And just, in your own interest, why aren't you trying to make games to sell to people? I never understood that. That in this entire time, this 15 or so year stretch since 2011, there has been exactly one serious attempt at a Game of Thrones video game in any genre. In this case, it was by Telltale, so it was the story decision type game. It was late 2014 in the aftermath of Season 4, and the plan was those following side characters concurrently with Season 4. It was a good idea. It's what they did for Walking Dead. Real effort went into that in terms of writing characters, that they got 6 of the core cast members from Game of Thrones to voice themselves in it. It wasn't the best thing ever, but it felt like a real attempt at making a game. It got decent reception. But then Telltale shut down, so they never followed up on it. So we've had exactly one attempt at any game in any genre. And 2014 was 12 years ago. At this point, by the time this new game comes out, it'll have been 12 years since any significant attempt at making a game of any kind. Well, since Game of Thrones, and well, the weirdest thing is that was 2014. And the weird thing about Game of Thrones was that the second half, we said the writing quality went down, but the spectacle went up. So the viewership and the media hype skyrocketed. But from 2015 through 2019, at the height of the show, there were even fewer attempts at making games, even knockoffs. I really don't understand any of that. In the aftermath of the final season, though, just in the gap between then and like House of the Dragon and everything, because it was like 5 years, they have churned out quite a few quote-unquote things which vaguely resemble what you might call video games, by which I mean cheap knockoff mobile app games. Now, I'm being told that there are some good mobile app games like Fallout Shelter. I love that, but you could tell no effort went into this. They reskinned something else. This was purely, we are selling this to like the Asian market, because they copied one of the other Legends games there, and because they sold it to Yuzu Group, who was a game company there, just to cash in on the money for it. And this would happen every couple of months. People didn't even remember the names of these things because it was so stupid. You'd see ads through them now and again. And we'd pretty much given up hope until this past year when they totally overhauled WB Games and said, we're going to have new leadership. The guy in charge for 12 years is out. We are now treating this as a major part of our new company because the Warner Discovery merger in 2022. That the people are in charge there since 2012. Just through the entire run of Game of Thrones, you never considered really putting effort into it. He said that there are two main parts to their overall strategy for Westeros video games going forward. First, he pointed out that any flagship game, major franchise game on the scale of a Hogwarts Legacy or Dragon Age, by definition, as a large-scale thing that takes a long time to work on, this isn't coming out for another 3 to 5 years at least. That's just the nature of the industry. I mean, it's like theatrical movie scale, that for the amount of time and effort you put into it, you order it, when we first start hearing about, we've ordered it and the writers are brainstorming ideas, to when it's actually released is a 3 to 5 year window. So Perret owned up to that, and I fully accept, I understand that he said, don't expect this big game that we are now just starting to brainstorm on until 2027, more likely 2029. And also, this is all part one. He said the flagship game is being developed by a subdivision of WB Games, WB Montreal, that we know what specific team they tasked with it. I've reported on this before. So all this raises the obvious question, why is there suddenly a new game slated to come out 12 months from now in 2026, not by WB Montreal, but by third-party company Playside? Playside is the largest game company in Australia, but few have heard of them before. That they made some updates to the Warcraft 3 remaster and a lot more work on various things for Meta's VR universe programming-wise, and recently, probably not coincidentally, which is my point, they've been working on a medieval city builder called Thrive Heavy Lies the Crown. Now, Warner, like I said, has two parts to its video game strategy. Part one is 5 years from now we're getting a flagship from WB Montreal. Perret openly said what the other part was. Second part is, during that interval, to chum the waters, or the way he said it was to keep the name out there in the public consciousness, we're going to churn out some cheap games every year. Not great games, but at least consistently putting something out, just so we're in the market and people remember the name. And I said in my other video game reports, I accept the logic of that we can either go 5 years with nothing or at least get a name out there. And yeah, it's a promotional gimmick, but they admitted to it. They said, we don't expect these to be great. We don't expect them to make a big profit. It's just to stay active. It's a placeholder. It's a placeholder. I accept that for what it is. You can have a pleasant placeholder game. So that's what we're looking at here, really. And we've already seen them do this as part of this pattern, and I didn't blame them for it. That look at this past fall, we had that Game of Thrones King's Road mobile game. Difference was it was just a mobile game. But remember how, they were churning out in the background little mobile games for years no one has ever heard of, like the Yuzu Group one, Game of Thrones Conquest, a bunch of other ones. They didn't really promote them that much other than internet ads and stuff. But remember last fall that they actually put a real promotional effort into that Game of Thrones King's Road mobile app game. It's eerily similar to what they're doing now because it's part of the same thing. Remember they put out this big trailer with FMV, rendered cutscene level stuff, which is nothing like what the actual game looks like. They did the same thing for War for Westeros, where there's this really slick trailer that cannot possibly look like the actual gameplay and should be obvious to people. I'm more blaming the people to get duped by those kinds of trailers. Like, how do you not know this isn't what the game is going to look like? And, to their credit, reviewers said this isn't, bad or an embarrassment, but it is what it is. A halfway decent mobile game that was clearly reskinned from another one with Westeros stuff. And if you like mobile games to waste time, I guess it's enjoyable, but it's not noteworthy. That's mobile games for you, though. You don't even expect a reskinned thing to be any good. This is the same thing, but in many ways different, because this isn't just some cheap mobile game. This is the real-time strategy genre. This is something for PC. The time and effort is actually going into this, a little more time and effort than just for a mobile game clone. And yeah, it does basically look like a generic medieval real-time strategy, not unlike Battle for Middle-earth 2, reskinned for Westeros. I gotta tell you, I'm fine with that. That so long as it's functional. How many fan mods are there like that there is a demand for that? There are fan mods like Crusader Kings mods, Total War mods, just swapping in Westeros stuff. So if it is basically a Battle for Middle-earth clone, but competently reskinned, not by fans, but by a high-grade professional studio-level stuff, reskinned for Westeros units, some unit dialogue, original soundtrack, and locations from Westeros, shut up and take my money, because we'll end up enjoying that. So fine, it's like a really, really good fan mod. It isn't something we should be criticizing. That I am saying, I don't expect this to be hyped up as the next Mass Effect, Age of Empires. This isn't going to be the next, what's the big game, Clair Obscur Expedition 33? It's not going to be something in that scale. It's not trying to be. You're missing the point. They are working on a flagship game. This isn't it. We're still waiting for news of that. All we know is it's being made by WB Montreal. I don't blame them for putting out, to pass the time, here's a good quality Battle for Middle-earth 2 professional mod for Westeros. That's fun. If they do it well, if they can do this equal or superior to what the fan mod community can put out on its own, I think we'll be happy with it. I retro game a lot of RTSs. That for RTS players, it isn't about the graphics so much as it is about the gameplay and immersion. Because we've had great stuff it's not about being a POV single player walking around in a universe. It's about seeing the whole thing. When you're looking at an entire battlefield, it doesn't matter if they get the face animation right, because you're zoomed out. So I'm not expecting this to be a giant hit. It isn't meant to be. This is meant to be a placeholder, and could end up being good. This could be the last I mention it if it's not, but they said it's coming out next summer, which is coincidentally at the least after Dunk and Egg, possibly the same time as House of the Dragon Season 3. So we'll have multiple projects in the air at the moment then. Maybe it'll ride off that buzz, I don't know. But I'm just... we haven't had a real video game, even a bad one. I mean, just a non-mobile game. The last one we had was the story decision-based Telltale game, which is good for that genre, 12 damn years ago. This is our first attempt at any real PC game in 12 years. So, keep an eye on it. It could be nice.